Just a word on myth and opera. Opera began, as you know, trying to recreate the profound mix of elements in Greek drama, which was perfected between the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE in Athens. Such great playwrights as Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, and so on. Not to forget Aristophanes, the great comedian. So, and the first great opera was an opera, La Favola de Orfeo, the story of Orpheus, by Claudio Monteverdi, still performed, still a lovely, lovely opera. This was about 1607. Myths are something extraordinary. They are stories, but they're stories that define something essential about human behavior, which makes them paradigmatic. They have a meaning much deeper, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, than a simple story which has a local effect or application. And the characters that we call mythic are both unique, very much themselves, and yet universal. I would argue that all 4 characters, but especially Carmen and José, are mythical characters, or characters which I think have a certain mythic or paradigmatic quality. I've compared Carmen to several figures, but mythically you might compare her to the passionate and murderous Medea. And don't forget all the strong figures that are created by Aeschylus and Sophocles, the female figures, in the great plays. She is one of those, an absolute dynamic will, a drive to autonomy. She must control her own destiny. José is very much like the emotional Achilles, a man with a flaw, a man obsessed with honor, and so on. Although Achilles, as you know, is part divine. His mother was an ordinary, run-of-the-mill Greek lady, very beautiful, but his father was a demigod or a god. But I'm just saying, there are some of these qualities. Escamillo is very like a really bombastic hero like Hercules. Just full of beans and a braggart, extrovert, no problem. Whereas Achilles is a very private kind of man. He locks himself up in his tent. He falls in love with a woman and is extremely jealous when that woman is taken away from him by the supreme commander of the Greeks as they engage in the war at Troy. So these 2 figures are very different. And finally, Michaela, I wrote here a phrase, a German phrase. She represents, I think, the ewige Weibliche, the naive and beautiful charm of a girl who loves honestly, deeply, and well, and who was tragically denied the promise of that love by a man who loves another, and then of all things destroys the other and is destroyed himself, leaving Michaela utterly alone. I think of the fate of Oedipus' daughters, both Oedipus' daughters, who are left to suicide or misery after the death of their father and their heroic brothers who fit into these 2 categories. Heroes, protagonists who do not know themselves well enough to conquer fate. conquer destiny, prove themselves worthy of a long life. So just a few parallels here. Doubtless you can find fault with my parallels, and you can find other ones which would be much better. But remember, we have here the femme fatale, la belle dame sans merci, the beautiful woman with no mercy. We have Morgan Le Fay. We have all sorts of people, these mythical figures, crammed, serving as prototypes for Carmen. José's prototypes are a little bit different, but I think Achilles is a pretty good example of him. Achilles is vulnerable, enormously powerful warrior, but vulnerable because half human. Escamillo is like Hercules, seemingly invincible, of course, in his sport and in society. Micaela, the eternal victim. Perhaps echoing in a certain way the naivete and delicacy of Mimi. And as we will see in the next opera, Violetta Valere. Thank you.